Welcome to Vantage Point. As a result of SONA being postponed, the whole nation focuses on the State of the Nation address. We caught up yesterday with William Khumere, academic and professor of public management at the Wits School of Governance, to give us an overview of SONA. This is what William had to say.
The ANC leadership have asked President Jacob Zuma to voluntarily resign from the state presidency of the country in order to allow Cyril Ramaphosa, who's the newly elected ANC president, to take over and then to deliver the State of the Nation address. Now, of course, President Jacob Zuma has refused. Now the ANC is sitting in a dilemma. They have to make a decision. What are they going to do? Are they going to fire him on the spot and so on, and then allow Ramaphosa to actually issue the State of the Nation address? And then we have the other part of the equation, where the opposition parties, the economic freedom fighters, they are saying, look, what they want to do is they want to have a vote of no confidence on the morning of the State of the Nation address. And then we have the other opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, who's arguing, look, they wanted the State of the Nation address to be postponed if Jacob Zuma is going to address it. So potentially we've got uncertainty, we've got chaos and so on. So we don't have certainty. So very early to tell. Of course, that is not good for South Africa, broadly speaking, because the State of the Nation is a really very important political event, and even an economic event in our country, because it sets the agenda for the next year. And this is a very important year going, between now and 2019. We're going to have the national elections, but also the expectations of people, ordinary supporters of the ANC, the general public, that now that there's a new leadership in the ANC, that we're going to see, growth is going to accelerate. We're going to see, the public service to be better managed. We're going to see better execution of our development plans and so on. But with this uncertainty will really undermine that hope of people. The ANC almost gave a deadline to Jacob Zuma, and they made the State of the Nation address on the 8th of February as a deadline for Jacob Zuma to resign. But now that Jacob Zuma is not resigning, that becomes the problem. And so on. So if Jacob Zuma is going to give the address, it will mean, well, the ANC leadership really don't have the authority over him, And secondly, what it will also do is that it will allow the opposition parties like the EFF and so on to either walk out, either disrupt it, and it will just give, I think, the appearance and the perception, that nobody's in control of the country, that we don't know what we're doing, and that, growth, this is not a positive investment climate, and so on. It really will undermine, I think, government. It will undermine, investment confidence. It will also undermine just ordinary people's confidence in government.
And recently, Cyril Ramaphosa was at the World Economic Forum, where he spoke very positive about South Africa and partnerships and investments in South Africa. So this will surely be a serious concern for international investment.
Absolutely. I mean, the problem for Cyril Ramaphosa, he's gone. He went to Davos. He's made the promises, and not only did he make the promises, but people were convinced. They were persuaded. Investors were persuaded. Even at home, you can see there's been a positive mood in the country, because if the country has been a negative mood under Jacob Zuma, the country has been there's been a negative mood, a negative climate. And when you have that type of business climate, nobody wants to invest, nobody wants to set up factories, nobody wants to use their savings to create jobs and so on. Everyone is standing back and say, let's wait and see what happens. Yeah. So that's what uncertainty creates. Now, Ramaphosa came in as a new leader. He went to Davos. Suddenly, there was a lot of excitement. Now, if Jacob Zuma remains in his post as the state president, I think people will start feeling, oh no, they will start saying, well, actually, maybe we should not be as optimistic. Maybe the Jacob Zuma and his crowd, who's been in charge of inefficiencies, who's been accused of corruption, who hasn't delivered, who's been undermining growth and so on, maybe they're still going to be in charge, until the next election. So maybe let's actually hold on, let's not invest, let's keep our savings, let's just see what's happening first before we do anything. And I think that's, it's almost, it's always worse when you create something positive and then people withdraw and say, well, actually, maybe it's a false positive. The ANC top six, when they went to see him last Sunday night, they went to his official house in Pretoria, they sat in his living room and they tried to persuade him. They told him, look, it's in the interest of the ANC, for the unity of the ANC, it's in the interest of the country, the economy of the country, that you voluntarily leave, and we want to do it in a dignified way, that you leave in a dignified way, resign. So, they thought he will listen to reason, but he said no. So I think from where I'm sitting, clearly he's really more worries about what is going to happen to him, his own fortunes. I mean, remember, he's now facing a double whammy of, one, potentially being prosecuted, for the 700 plus of charges, which is now going to be reinstated, the charges of corruption, money laundering and fraud and bribery, which was there before he became president, but was stalled and is now, is going to be reintroduced. That's the first thing. Now, the second thing is also, the former public protector, Thuli Madonsela, in her report on state capture, this is state corruption in South Africa, recommended that there should be a commission of inquiry into it. Now, Jacob Zuma, or the courts, insisted that Jacob Zuma actually set that up. The first week of January announced that such a commission into corruption, or what we call state capture, is going to take place. Now, he is the subject of that inquiry. So, so two potential, one, the inquiry into corruption under his presidency and his dealings with the Gupta family and with other people that people alleged corrupt, and so on. And then the old corruption charges is now going to be brought back, and so on. So he's fighting not only for his political survival, but also, for his life, so to speak. So, so I don't think there's going to be we should expect a reasonable response from him, because what he wants, really, he wants immunity from prosecution, which unfortunately in our law, you can't get immunity of prosecution in South African law. What you can get a presidential pardon, but then you have to be convicted already. Or you can there's a second option, you could potentially get immunity from prosecution if you're a sitting president, but then the constitution needs to be changed. And for that to happen, you need 2/3 of parliament, members of parliament must vote on that. Now, right now, that's very difficult. I mean, because 2/3 in parliament means you need to get almost all the opposition party MPs to vote for that. Then he needs to get almost all of the ANC members of parliament to vote for that also. And the ANC parliamentary wing is divided because there's a whole lot of people who don't support him and so on. So it's almost very difficult to get that. What we've seen is execution has been appalling because the instrument of execution, the government itself, has been, either corrupt, ineffective because people have been appointed in leadership positions that doesn't have the skills, but because they're close to Jacob Zuma, they're related to Jacob Zuma and so on. So we have a very good plan, but we don't have the human capital to execute, because the human capital, we're not appointing people on merit, we're appointing them because you're either close to the ANC leadership or you're close to Jacob Zuma and so on. And then thirdly also, even in terms of business development where we should get the jobs, in the state tendering process, there also, because that process is being corrupt, which means we're not creating the new the new, we're not giving new opportunities for people on merit, the people that can create the jobs, the people that can make the investment. They can't get the contracts in the state because many of them are not connected. And that's the problem. So if you look at during the Jacob Zuma presidency is, a couple of things has happened. Unemployment has actually risen. Unemployment is now the highest it has been in the last 2 decades, so we've gone backwards. In terms of, even from an industrial point of view, the country has been deindustrializing. So what it means is the things that we used to make, we import the things now. So simple things that we used to make. Now that is when a country deindustrializes, we can't create jobs. But the jobs that are being created here are jobs, our jobs that we should have been created. Actually, foreign companies actually export those jobs to their countries and so on, and that's our problem. And then, lastly, the state itself, the state, I would say the public service, but also state-owned entities, they haven't functioned. And that the public service and state-owned entities are very important in terms of delivering quality public education, delivering quality health care, delivering accessible water and so on. So if the state is not functioning, none of that can happen. And if you don't have quality education, public health care, quality security, policing and so on, you can't have growth either. So unfortunately, the Jacob Zuma presidency, the state has actually failed, many parts of the state, which has undermined growth and which has undermined job creation.
Finally, 2017, the State of the Nation address was very focused on Oliver Tambo. It was the year of Oliver Tambo, and there was special attention given to maths and science because Oliver Tambo was a maths and science teacher. Now 2018 is dedicated to former President Nelson Mandela. What do you think would be the focus areas this year for our government?
The focus must always be on maths and science. I mean, that's important from our economy. Sadly, again, so it has been, the past a couple of years has been, we've come up with the slogans, but we don't deliver on the ground because the state is too corrupt. So we don't have the capacity because our capacity is undermined by corruption, by incompetence, by not appointing people on merit. So that undermines all of the work that we want to do. We can't do the work, we can't do the delivery, because we can't execute because we've corrupted the state. So we've got our slogans. So in a way, but the point is the slogans cannot execute, and that's our problem, and so on. And maybe I think what we should do, going forward, we most probably try not to do the slogans.
Thank you, William, for joining us today. We've heard from William Khumede, Professor for the School of Governments at Wits University, where we are also getting the idea that Fix It and Clean It should be the State of the Nation address for this year. That was William Khumede, academic and professor of public management at the Wits School of Governance. Thank you for joining us for a pre-SONA special discussion at Vantage Point. Wishing you a blessed day. Assalamu alaikum.